Section 2.3, finding trig functions using a calculator. Function values using a calculator. Calculators are capable of finding trig functions. What we first have to do when we evaluate trig functions of angles given in degrees, remember that a calculator must be set in degree mode. Remember that most calculator values of trig functions are approximations. Let's take a look at the calculator. You have a calculator that is given to you by your instructor. What we need to do is recall that if we are finding trig functions in terms of degrees, we must change the calculator to degrees so we can get the approximations that are needed. So in this calculator, we go to the mode. You can see that in our mode, right now we have radians selected. What we need to do is have degrees selected. So we need to scroll down until radian is flashing. Then we're going to scroll to the right until degree is flashing and hit enter. Now I'm in degree mode. I can now exit the mode screen by pressing second mode. Let's look at our first example. This slide wants us to find the function values of the calculator. Our first example, sine 38 degrees 24 minutes. The first thing we want to do is convert 38 degrees and the 24 minutes to a decimal degree. Recall from chapter 1, to do this we take 24 minutes and divide by 60. And on a calculator we should represent this with a plus sign in between. Let's take a look. Here, 38 degrees plus 24 divided by 60. That gives us 38.4 represented on both the slide and the calculator. Now, what we want to do is take the sine of 38 degrees 24 minutes, which is the sine of 38 degrees 0.4. On the calculator, we press the sine function. We could either enter 38.4 degrees by hand, or what we could do is press second and then the negative symbol at the bottom of the calculator, and that enters the previous solution into that new function that I want to find. And that's probably the best way to do it, just in case that our previous solution is large. Then we press enter. Our solution on a calculator, 0.6211477,803, and they approximate that on the slide. Our next example is cotangent of 68.4832 degrees. The nice thing here is that we already have our decimal degree, but what we need to use is the identity reciprocal to calculate this solution. So recall also from our previous sections that the cotangent theta has a reciprocal of 1 over tangent theta. Let's take a look at how we enter this into the calculator. I already know that the cotangent of theta is 1 over tan theta. So I'm going to enter it in as the reciprocal function, but with the given decimal degree. So I'm going to enter 1 divided by the tangent function, and then I enter my decimal degree, 68.4832. Don't forget to close the parentheses, and then calculate our answer. And notice the approximation to our calculator. Before we go on to our next topic, I would like to take a look at a previous slide. On this slide, we are given a sine of 38 degrees and 24 minutes. They give us a degree, and what they want us to do is convert that degree using a calculator and the sine function on that calculator to a value that represents the ratio of the sides of the triangle that relate to sine. So it converts the degree to a decimal value of that ratio. The new topic here says we want to find an angle measure using a calculator, but this topic will give us the function value or the decimal, and what we want to do is convert that into a degree measure. And the way we do that is by this term right here, which is inverse function. So we want to use the graphing calculators that have inverse functions. We write them on the calculator and in book form as sine to the negative 1x, cosine to the negative 1x, and tangent to the negative 1x. I just want you to realize that these are not reciprocals of my sine, cosine, and tangent. These are inverses of them. In other words, sine, cosine, tangent will take us to the value of the function, while the inverses will take us from the value back to a degree. Let's continue with an example. In this problem, they want us to use the inverse trig functions to find angles. Use a calculator to find the measure of the angle theta. So here we have sine theta. Usually we've known the angle, but here we actually know the value of the function, which is 0.8535508. We need to use the calculator to convert this value into a degree. Let's go to our calculator. Again, remember, we need to be in degree mode, which we already are. Then, to perform the operation, all I need to do is hit second, and then go to our trig function, which is sine, but notice above the function it gives a sine to the negative 1, and then enter the decimal or trig value, which is 0.8535508, and close the parenthesis. Then calculate by hitting enter. Notice what we get is 58.6 degrees, and that's what we have as an approximation for our angle measure. Our next example wants us to find secant theta. So again, they want us to find an angle measure given the decimal value of that function. Here the decimal value 2.486879. But recall from our identities of these functions is that cosine theta is 1 over secant. So what I need to do is to take my function value and find its reciprocal. Then we can actually calculate the inverse of cosine to find the degree measure. Let's go to the calculator. Here I've already plugged in the reciprocal of the secant theta function, which is 1 divided by 2.486879. And when I calculate, I'm going to get a better approximation on the calculator than actually what is on my slide. So now all I need to do is find the inverse of my cosine function, which is secant cosine, and then I'm going to use the function that the calculator generated by pressing second negative symbol, which puts the previous solution in the calculator into my new function. And then I'll calculate, and I get theta to be 66.3 degrees, or they extended the approximation on the slide.